Hey friends, Patrick here. Top 10 list. Who doesn't love a good one? This isn't exactly, it's not exactly a top 10 list. It's not 10 is the worst, 1 is the best. It's just looking at 10 interesting facts and figures. Current day, right now it is June 20-something or other, 26th. Looking at the market right now and what's going on. Again, 10 interesting facts, looking at all different angles of the market. Let's go. St. Catharines. It's a heated market, to say the least. Lots of activity, lots of hustle and bustle. It's a huge rebound month, considering what was going on 2 months ago. So for 162 sales so far in June, as you can see, about 39-40% of them have sold at or over the asking price for an average of just under 104%. Days in the market for that month, for those listings, only 12. So that's reminiscent of what we went through back in 2016, 2017 when the market did what it did. But yeah, so that's number 10. Number 9, Niagara Falls. So 121 sales so far in the month of June. About 31% of those selling at or more than what they've asked. An average of just under 101%. So not quite to the level of St. Catharines as far as that heated activity, but still certainly a massive change from what we saw 60 days ago. Number 8, we're back to St. Catharines. Again, going back to that June number for the 162 sales. Average sale price for the month of June for all sales so far at $481,000. 99.25% of asking. So for all the sales so far in June, on average, they got 99.25% of what they were asking, which is a bit more than what historically is typical. And then for June, 2020 June is on pace to be very close to the total number of sales for June 2019, which is incredible. We were down 62% 2 months ago. Had we told you in 2 months we would have been back to normal sales volume, nobody would have believed you. Average sale price at that 481 is actually up 15% for June 2020 versus June 2019. It was 418 in June 2019. Here we are a year later, it's 481. Flip the 8 and the 1. So there you go. That's the 8th spot. Number 7. One segment of the market that got really quiet during COVID was the higher end, the $700,000-800,000 plus. So looking at this, $1 million plus for 2020, only been 7 sales so far for St. Catharines, over $1 million so far in 2020. Put that against 2019 for the year when there was 33 sales. So even if we kept this pace up, St. Catharines will still be down by more than half in terms of $1 million plus sales. There were 11 total in 2018 and 20 back in 2017. So, even if we kept this pace up and we only got to 14, 15, 16, it's still going to be low in comparison. But we shall see, because that higher end market has come back with a vengeance to some extent. So we'll see about that $1 million plus market though, see how that does. Number 6, Niagara Falls, over $1 million. So Niagara Falls, unlike St. Catharines, is somewhat on pace for 2019 in terms of the total number of sales that are going to sell, over $1 million. So far this year, they're at 8 sales over $1 million, 15 in total in 2019. So again, if the sort of trend of the higher end returning as COVID is lightened a little bit, if that trend continues, perhaps Niagara Falls will beat the 2019 record. But interestingly, that they're not that far off the pace so far this year in comparison to St. Catharines. So we shall see. So affordability is a huge piece. So that brings us to number 5. In St. Catharines, the total number of sales under $400,000. So for 2020, we're on pace for about 700 sales, give or take 10 or 20. Comparing that to the total for 2019, that would be a decline of 36% number of sales for homes priced at $400,000 or less. Going back to 2016, we all remember when the market did what it did back in 2016-17. Going back to 2016, that's a decline of 70% for homes selling at $400,000 or under. So again, that the affordability, the access to home ownership has always been a big discussion, as prices have changed so much over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And so that really puts numbers to it as well. Number 4, St. Catharines, the highest average sale price community, neighborhood, whatever you want to call it. Our area, Niagara, and then each city has its own sort of geographical designated neighborhoods. Some make sense, some don't. This one is wrapped around Martindale Pond, so it's looking at St. George's Point, Cole Farm, Royal Henley, sort of that area either side. So that is actually the highest sale price so far this year. Year to date at $766,000 for an average sale price. Second place was Port Dalhousie at $737,000. If you take waterfront out of those numbers, with or without waterfront, those are your first and second place finishers for average sale price so far this year. Number 3. So again, at the very beginning, I mentioned that this isn't a top 10 list where 10 is the worst and 1 is the best. Likewise, the lowest price area of the city doesn't mean that it's the worst priced. It just means that you have to look at the data that goes into it, the sales volume and the type of housing and that's there. So this area isn't a big geographical area. It's only the QEW west of Vine to Scott Street. And then also in there, you have a fair number of condos. You have 359 Geneva, 365 Geneva, 198 Scott, 196 Scott Street, which are all smaller condos. So that's feeding that market. There was only 34 sales that fed that data at 333,000. There are a few other areas of the city that weren't much above that as far as the average sale price so far. But hey, that's the categories, and that's where that one fell in. Numero 2. We've talked a lot about days in the market versus cumulative days in the market. So for example, if a house is listed, canceled and relisted at another price, canceled, relisted at another price, and sells after 11 days, days in the market looks at that as only 11 days. Cumulative takes into account all the previous listings. So this is looking at cumulative days in the market for Niagara. So the fastest market in Niagara right now is St. Catharines at 37 days. And at the other end of the spectrum, the slowest market is Niagara-on-the-Lake at 105 days cumulative to sell. So again, there's within each city, there's streets, there's neighborhoods that are moving faster or slower than others, but that's looking at it from a municipal level. Again, St. Catharines the fastest at 37, and then you have a few others, Beamsville, Grimsby, in that are in that low 40s range, and then really everywhere in between. You have some in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. So depending on where you live, you're going to have a different time to sell. Number 1, the grand finale, as it were. Total number of sales. This is really about Niagara, the real estate market in Niagara in June 2020 being more or less like a recovery month or a rebound month. So February, March was slamming away. Middle of March, the brakes were put on. April pulled right back. May showed some recovery, and June is showing a lot of normal data, which is incredible. So when you look back in April, total number of sales for Niagara were down 62%. June, I prorated it. So this is taking June to the 25th of the month and then doing a daily rate and blah, blah, blah. And so June 2020 is actually on pace to have 9% more sales than June 2019 when COVID wasn't even a word for us yet, which is incredible. And that goes across all of Niagara. Most cities are up. Oddly enough, St. Catharines is going to be down about 3 or 4% number of sales in June, unless some big things happen in the next 4 days. But otherwise, St. Catharines is going to be down about 3 or 4%. But that's okay. To have any cities in the positive in number of sales for June 2020 versus 2019 is, I believe, it's you could call it a victory or surprising anyway. So that's a wrap. That's 10 quick factoids about the Niagara real estate market. Hopefully you found it helpful and maybe mildly entertaining. I don't know. If you want more of this, you can always follow us on our social platforms. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. I think my kids always say something about smash that subscribe button or pound that like button or whatever it is. I don't know how it works. Anyway, any questions at all about where you live, we're happy to chat. Again, we didn't get into the weeds with all the cities because there's different levels of volume in different markets that unless you go way out, it doesn't give you really good data, because if you only have 11 sales or 7 sales or 17 sales, it's hard to get a lot of weight out of it. But anyway, that's the quick story long. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Cheers. Thank you. Bye.